What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Lock and Cash podcast. This is the NFL Week 15 market review episode. If this is your first time finding the channel, my name is Jeff with Lock and Cash Sports. We're going to go through the entire slate, talk about some of the games that I like, how I'm looking to bet this weekend coming up, and some of the spots that I think you can take advantage of in terms of sides and totals. Coming off of Week 14, a down week for me. A pretty frustrating week because I talked on last week's show about how it was a lower volume week for me. There was only a few carefully chosen spots that I really liked, and only one of them really came to fruition, which was frustrating, which was the Packers on Thursday night. So they cover and the loss, the 3.5. But then the other spots that I loved were the Eagles against the Panthers. They win but don't cover the spread. The other one was Arizona, -2.5 against the Bears. Against the Seahawks, and obviously they don't even get close. They just from the beginning, Kyler Murray throws the game away. So frustrating to watch. The late ad that not late ad, but one of the plays that I added late was the Bears, which was a smaller bet, but they didn't even come close either. Horrible bet by me. So we're on to Week 15. We did finish off with the Bengals last night. So we hit the primetime games, which is frustrating. We had a small parlay with the Chiefs, pulled it out. We hit the Bengals last night. We hit the Packers on Thursday night. It's just that 1 p.m. slate for the last 3 weeks has been killing me. So we'll try to figure that out this weekend. And I'll start off by saying that this week is going to be a much higher volume week for me. So we'll see how that goes, because there's a lot more games that I love this week. I never let the week before shake my confidence. So I'm still some of the games I'm looking at this week, and I love them once again. So, all right, before we get into it, this market review is brought to you by the Action Network app. Check down in the description for the link to download the app. Some great tools, information, articles on there. You can look at betting splits, stuff like that. You can also follow me on the app and track all my free plays, which are on there. I put the Bengals on there last night. I put a college basketball play on there last night that hit as well. We've been doing well in college basketball, so check that out down in the description if you're interested in the Action app. Starting off with Thursday Night Football, the Rams taking on the 49ers. Current line has been a little bit back and forth, but right now the Niners laying 2.5 at home, juiced up to -115 in some books. 48.5 is the total. This came down as close to a pick'em as you can get. It was 49ers -1 or -1.5 for a brief moment till it got bought back up. The opener of 2.5 was bought on by the Rams, and now it's kind of settled there. I like San Francisco in this spot. I think it's beneficial for them what happened on Sunday, right? They basically expended very little effort to take care of the Bears. 400 yards in the first half compared to 10 for whatever the number was. You saw it all over social media. The game was never close, all right? The desperation they came out with, that's the Niners team that we were waiting to see for the last 4 or 5 weeks that we, for some reason, didn't see. And it seems like now it comes out after that maybe they had a players meeting where they met, and whatever the case may be, but they looked super rejuvenated, and much sharper than we've seen in the past. Worry a little bit, maybe is this a letdown? But I kind of think when you dispose of a weaker team like the Bears, it's not so much of a letdown as it is when it's a more formidable opponent. On the other side, the Rams looked great as well. Not so much on defense, but they looked great offensively. Stafford had an unbelievable game. The one thing that worries me about them is that their offense has looked significantly better at home. I mean, just go back to the previous week. I laid the points with them on the road against the Saints. I got the win, but it was by no means easy. And the Saints are obviously not a great team, but the Rams really could not do anything against that defense in the first half. Late, they scored 2 touchdowns late in the game to take the win, but that was a big sweat with the Rams on side. So them going on the road, tough place to play, obviously in San Francisco. They've already beat the Niners once this season. The Niners are going to be looking for revenge. The Niners are still alive in the playoff race. And maybe something clicked. I don't know. It's such hard. They've been a tough team to get a read on. I mean, we've already cashed their win total under, but it seems like now they're going to make a push. For me, the bottom line is here, even with all the injuries, the Rams are healthier. Can I get to the point where I only have them even, San Francisco a half a point higher on a neutral? I'd have to upgrade the Rams, further in my rankings to get to that point. So for me, I think the line's still a little bit short. I like the Niners here. As they try to make a late season push. All right, over to Sunday. We've got the Ravens taking on the Giants. Baltimore laying a huge number, 14.5. Starting to see 15s pop up. Totals at 43. Obviously, the Giants have a pretty bad quarterback situation with Drew Lock now being banged up. If he does play this game, he's not going to be 100%. The O-line is banged up. Obviously, Dexter Lawrence, their best pass rusher now for the season. Man, Baltimore comes out of their bye week after that tough loss to Philly. And we have several teams coming out of byes this week, so this is going to be a recurring theme in the pod. But man, coming out of that bye, there's two ways now. Remember, teams like Arizona, right? The week that we bet against them with the Seahawks, my whole take was like a team like Arizona, that's great as a dog, momentum. A bye week's going to hurt that team. They weren't struggling going into the bye. It's going to hurt them. Teams that lose going into the bye, I really like to back when they come out. We did that, a few times this season. And I think this is another great spot. I agree with the line move up. I mean, 15. I think this is a 3-touchdown plus win. How are the Giants going to compete in this game? There's no advantages. The Ravens are going to be rested, healthy, coming off a loss. They see Pittsburgh playing. Pittsburgh just got another divisional win. I mean, Cincinnati just won. They're technically still alive. It's slippy. You got to be careful if you're the Ravens here. You cannot afford any mishaps. And I just think they're going to crush the Giants. So I would lay the 14. I'm leaning to lay the 14.5. Maybe we get some sharps come in and buy the Giants as a 2-touchdown home underdog. I'd lay 14 or better with the Ravens. So I like Baltimore quite a bit in this spot. I just don't see any way that the Giants keep this, below a 20-point difference here. All right, next game, the Commanders taking on the Saints. Washington is laying 7. A little bit of money has come in. This was 7.5. Knocked it out of the ideal Wong teaser range. Totals at 43. Another team that's pretty banged up. The Saints obviously lose Derek Carr in the game on Sunday against the Giants. I guess you're going to get Hayner now if it's not Rattler. I don't know what, either way, it's ugly. Probably expect a lot of Alvin Kamara in this game, but here's another team coming out of their bye week. Washington is going to come out after that bad loss to the Cowboys. You're going to really need a win here if you're the Commanders to stay in the race. So small lean there, but this is more, the Giants I have no problem fading as a big home dog. This is the Saints I think are a little bit healthier on defense. Still have Alvin Kamara on offense. At least you got something to work with there, as opposed to the Giants who have nothing to work with. So I can't really get behind either side in this game. Maybe a small lean to the over because I think it's like the Saints have nothing to lose. The Commanders coming out rested out of their bye week. They just beat up on the Titans. This is a nice, kind of like unload everything, take care of the Saints, move on. So I kind of would lean slightly over in Commanders games. A little, maybe use Washington in a teaser, but I'm not really strong on this game either way. All right, we've got the Chiefs laying 4.5 on the road in Cleveland against the Browns. Totals at 45. We talked about this last week with the Chargers game on Sunday Night Football. I ended up taking the Chiefs in a moneyline parlay. I was kind of lucky to get that at the end with the doink off of the goalpost. But that's what KC does. I said it last week. I'll say it again. I've been saying it for like 4 weeks in a row. Whenever they're favored by a big number, they win these games, but they don't cover them. So I would lean to the Browns getting the 4.5 here. I do think this is one of those sleepy spots, though. I could see that, the Chiefs have won a lot of games in a row now, right? Aside from the Buffalo loss, but they have just been on an unbelievable run this season. And now you just clinched, right? We just saw this with the Bills. They clinched their division in that game in the snow against the 49ers. Come back the next week, laying road chalk, lose outright to the Rams. This feels like a sleepy spot. I could see the Browns being very close in this one. Jameis is a high variance underdog, can keep you in these games, can throw you out of these games. But man, the Chiefs defense is the unit that I'm a little concerned about. They haven't looked as dominant as they've looked in previous years when they've made their runs. And on top of that, they're up 13-0 going into the half. The Chargers come out. Disley's hurt. You already don't have McConkey. You don't have Dobbins. And they put up 2 quick touchdowns on that defense. I'm not so sure about the Chiefs defense going forward. The Chargers could have very well have won that game. Probably should have won that game. And I think the Browns are slinging it. They're not going to run the football. Jameis is going to throw 40+ times again. Judy's looked really good with him. The connection is there. High variance spot, but I could see Cleveland keeping this very close. And this is one of those spots where I wouldn't be surprised if you just saw an outright win. So a small lean to Cleveland, but I don't love it at this number. The opener was 6. That's where I would have liked it a bit more. 4.5. It's just a lean. Okay, let's move to Houston. We've got the Dolphins taking on the Texans. Miami plus 2.5, but now I'm seeing 3s on some books, catching a juice 3 here. 47.5 is the total. Another team in Houston that comes out of their bye week and I really like the Texans in this game. Miami comes off of the overtime win against the Jets, a divisional overtime win at home where they've been very good. Their offense has been really, really good at home. It hasn't been so good on the road. Now, this is an indoors game, and Miami does have all that speed. But my angle here for backing Houston is pretty simple. I want to see, right, the same thing I talked about earlier about Arizona going into the bye. It hurt them. Seattle coming out of the bye really helped them. They needed the bye week. I think the Ravens are going to be, they're going to benefit greatly from their bye week. I think Houston is a team that really needed a bye, right? They haven't, the latest bye, the teams that just had their bye week, there's no more bye. So this is the latest bye in the NFL. They've been playing football for so long. They've been squeezing out games. They haven't looked great in some spots. They lose outright to the Titans. Just a lot of problems. All the talent is there. Every piece that you could ever want for a championship contender is there on the Houston Texans. They just haven't been able to put it all together. I got a feeling they come out of the bye week rejuvenated, refreshed, almost like a little reset, maybe see some scheme changes, some strategy changes. And I think this could be a really good smash spot for them against the Dolphins, who come off of that win. The Dolphins just need to keep winning, right? They're technically still in it, but they got to keep winning. They got to keep winning. That gets tough. Now you just went to overtime. They should have lost that game against the Jets. To be perfectly honest, they should have lost, but they pulled it out. And now you got to hit the road. I don't know. Lines up to be a little bit shaky for me. And you can bring up the history of Tua versus teams that are below 500. He's incredible versus teams above 500. Not so much. The step up in competition usually gets to them. So I like Houston. And I would maybe wait, if you can get some money coming in on the threes, maybe push this back down to a 2.5 at a regular -110, even -115 I'd be okay with. I would take the Texans in that game. The Jets. All right, the Jets are taking on the Jaguars. New York is a road favorite, laying 3.5 points at Jacksonville. Totals at 40.5. I don't have much on this game. The Jets just continue to find ways to lose. That game last week, you're up 8 with a few minutes to go. You got to give up the octopus to even send it to overtime. Somehow they managed to do it. Then you lose the coin toss. Game over. They just continuously find new ways to lose football games. Very inventive in that regard. It's Mac Jones at home catching 3.5. I just talked about Winston being high variance. Mac Jones threw a couple picks last week. That was expected. I think he'll probably throw a couple more picks again this week. But I can't. There's no way you can get me to lay 3.5 points on the road with the Jets. If anything, I would just lean to very small to the +3.5 at home. They just got outright win in the division, 10-6. The defense is looking bad. The Jags, give them a little bit of credit. The defense is, at least the effort is there, right? They look much better than they did earlier in the season. No way can I lay the points with the Jets. And even though they are the sharp side once again, they have been the sharp side every week. And I guess technically last week, if you got 6.5, you did cover. But the 5.5, which was there for most of the week, did not cover. So I can't do it with the Jets. Pass on the game. All right, the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Titans. Cincy laying 5, same number they laid last night against the Cowboys. Totals at 48. We saw that Monday night game last night, which we hit on the Bengals -5. Took a lot of money to the over. And you saw Cowboys money come in late because it closed, I think, 4.5 or 4. But the over money came in and it didn't get there, right? And I think you saw a little bit of something from the Bengals defense. Now it is Cooper Rush and the Cowboys. Not much there to work with in terms of Cooper Rush. But now you're kind of getting a similar scenario. You got Levis and the Titans. He's got maybe a few more weapons, but they're overall just still not a very good offense, and they're very high, very boomer bust, right? Look at the game that they played against Houston. Then look at the game they played against Jacksonville yesterday or on Sunday. Just they looked totally pathetic. He looked absolutely horrible. One thing worth noting, Joe Burrow in his career, for some reason, he's been really good as a road favorite. I think it's now 13-5 against the spread. He's a perfect 4-0 against the spread this year as a road favorite, and the Bengals overall are 6-1 against the spread on the road this year. So listen, for what it's worth, I like the Bengals again in this game. I don't really see how the Titans can keep it close defensively. Does this go back to being a shootout and the Bengals defense regresses to what we've seen in previous games? Maybe, but they tend to do well against teams below 500. They've played a brutal schedule this year. The Bengals, most of their losses have come against teams that are in playoff contention right now, fighting for spots or fighting for their division. So they've had a really, really tough stretch of offenses that they've had to go against. And you saw last night when they get a weaker one, or the game earlier in the season when they beat the Panthers, they beat the Browns on the road. Whenever they got a weaker offense at those specific times. Carolina looks better now, and Cleveland. But at that, it was Watson at the time. It was I think it was Dalton in that game. So whenever you get these teams that are weaker offensively playing that Bengals defense, they can hold their own. It's when they go up against the elite teams where they really struggle. So I think this is another game where the Bengals win and cover, laying the 5 on the road against Tennessee. All right, here's a spot that I really like. Oh, the Cowboys are taking on the Panthers. This is now 2. All right, this was a 1. Carolina -1. It's now up to -2. I'm even seeing a 2.5. Totals at 43. I think the Panthers win this game straight up. So if you're comfortable with a -130 money line, I don't have any problem with that. I like the -2 here. If you can get it, I would not go 2.5 just in case. I don't like to obsess too much about the point spread because it matters. It doesn't really matter much of the time. But I would lay the 2 here with Carolina. I think this is just a great spot for them. Look at how they've been playing as of late. They've been playing really, really good teams, very close loss against the Chiefs, overtime loss against the Buccaneers. This game on Sunday, they had a chance to. How is it possible that they have a chance driving down at the end of that game to beat the Eagles, a 6-point lead with a few minutes to go? That's the worst lead you could have in the NFL with a few minutes to go. The door's wide open. Of course, the Eagles eventually get the stop, but it was not easy. They were driving. They were moved from all the way backed up into their own. What are they at the 2-yard line to start that drive? Get all the way to nearly across midfield. This team is playing very, very well. They're playing inspired. Bryce Young is a completely different quarterback. He's going to get obviously a little bit, similar. He to me looked just fine on Sunday. I thought the Eagles would put up much more points on offense, but they didn't. They just kind of seemed disinterested in the game. But they looked fine on offense against a really good Eagles defense. Now you're going to get the Cowboys defense, which is not nearly as good, especially in the secondary. The pass rush is solid. They can generate pressure, but they're not good in the secondary. And Bryce has looked in these stretch of games where they've played better. He's looked much, much better at managing those blitz looks, those pressures when they come in. He's doing a much better job of stepping up through the pocket, scrambling to which side he needs to go to. Instead of, if you look at some earlier clips from him in the season and last year, he would run straight back or try to spin back one way, and then he would go right into the pressure. He's being much more evasive now. Looks like a completely different player. And the Carolina defense deserves a lot of credit too. They've been playing really well, getting pressure on the quarterback. Now that defense is healthy, it looks completely revamped and different. And this is a bad spot for the Cowboys because you come off of the Monday Night Football game, so you're on short rest, and you just lost. Your chances were already pretty slim, but now you're completely done. You got nothing to play for now. Cooper Rush, statistically, I know they've won a couple of games with him, but that was against the Giants, a divisional game against the Commanders. Statistically, it's been one of the worst, like 30th in EPA per play with him at quarterback. They can't move the ball consistently downfield. A couple of times it works here and there. The Panthers defense, I think, is going to have a good game. I think Bryce will look good. I think in this stretch of games where the Panthers, they beat the Saints, they beat the Giants, and then they've played 3 other very close, tight games. You could easily be talking about a team here that's like 4 wins in their last 5 games. And we would be looking at this completely differently. So I like Carolina with the short number laying 2 against the Cowboys. I think it's a great spot for the Panthers. Okay, the Colts are taking on the Denver Broncos. Indy catching 4 points on the road. Totals at 44 in this game. I don't really have anything too crazy on this game. It is a huge game, though, right? This is a massive game that has playoff implications. Like when we talk about expected, you have those stats. It's like, all right, if you win, your chance of getting in goes up. This is going to be a huge swing. The loser of this game will go like 20 percentage points down in terms of their chances to get in, while the winner will take a huge bump up. So this is going to be a really interesting game in terms of seeing the results of it. In terms of betting it, I don't really love anything. I do have a lean here to the Colts. I think they can keep it close. I think the Broncos, man, they have been, in my opinion, overperforming for quite a bit now. And, they did play a really good game against the Chiefs. That game last week, though, against the Browns, where we had the 6.5, and it was a brutal loss. They should have lost that game outright by 10 plus. That was an unbelievable choke by the Browns. Obviously, the 2 pick sixes really hurt them, but and their defense just gave up a couple of big plays. But overall, that game, Denver they looked outmatched in that game on defense. Winston was throwing it all over them. And you're not going to get that from Anthony Richardson, but he is, again, very boomer bust. You have a lot of these types of players now, these types of quarterbacks that are just so high variance. He's one of them. He can make amazing throws. He can make throws that look like a toddler. He can miss throws that look like a toddler can make them. But I think the ground game here can get going for Indy. Totals at 44. It's been bought up. I would have leaned over when it was 42 at the opener. It's been bought up now. I just think, the Broncos defense, yes, it's good. But man, did it look susceptible last week. And I think Indy can do some things here with Jonathan Taylor and with Anthony Richardson and those guys to try to keep themselves in this game. This to me just profiles almost like it has a playoff feel to it, right? So if you're giving me 4 points on one side with a team that I think is capable, a team that's coming out of their bye week, I'm willing to bite with the Colts +4. This just feels like a field goal game either way. So I would lean to the dog. Okay, let's take a look at what is probably the game of the week. The Buffalo Bills are headed to Detroit to take on the Lions. Bills have been bought, all right? There was a release from what I heard on Buffalo +2.5. It's now +1.5. Totals at 55 for this game. This is the highest total of the season, if I'm not mistaken. But quick note that you should know is that the totals in the 50s, they've been going under, man. I think they're like 61, 62% to the under this season when the total gets to the 50s. I'm not saying to bet the under in this game. It's two amazing offenses indoors. It's probably going to be a shootout, but man, do I like Buffalo in this spot. I think this is a great spot for the Bills. Bills money line +105. That's where I would go with this personally. And I just think they were clearly sleepwalking against the Rams, especially on defense. They go down early and the defense can't stop anything. They just clinched it. We just talked about this in the KC Cleveland game, right? That same angle. You clinch the division at home. It was a big win in the snow. They blow out the 49ers. Everyone's happy. Now you travel across the country, indoor cozy game. I talked about it on last week's episode, how the Rams look like the side there. And the Rams come out, get a big lead on you. Now what happens is in those types of sleepwalking, sleepy spots, you try to make up for it late, right? So you expend some energy late because you're like, all right, maybe we can still steal this. There's enough time. So you start going all out late and they happen to make it a game, but they still lose. But I think they were just looking. That game was kind of just like, all right, we're in a good spot in the division. We got to go play this game. Let's go play it. But it wasn't all out. This is going to be a this is going to be a refocus, much bigger effort from Buffalo, I think, in a potential Super Bowl preview. And Detroit, what I saw from last week with Detroit is they are susceptible. They don't look like the team they looked like earlier in the season. Okay, that juggernaut look is gone. Teams are going to start playing them close. 3-point win to the Bears. 3-point win against the Packers. Packers could have easily won that game, but they didn't. And now I think a team comes in like Buffalo, man, even better than both of those two teams, playing really, really well offensively. Is this, this is Josh Allen, you go win this game, the MVP is yours. I just think everything lines up here for the Buffalo Bills. I really like them in this spot. I'm trying to see what other notes I had on this game because I was thinking about it a lot. Yeah, I think it's going to be a shootout. Oh, the other thing was the Dan Campbell thing, man. The Dan Campbell thing with the going on 4th downs. He happened to get away with it against the Packers, but I think he's just a little bit too loose. I know that's his style, but if this happens in this game, you're not going to be bailed out, I don't think. Buffalo's too good. The Bills are too good. They're going to be up for this game. I expect them to have a good game plan. And the Lions are getting healthier on defense. They should get some guys back, but they're still really banged up on defense. And I think going up against this kind of offense, man, I don't know. I like the Bills. I think the Bills win this game. I think this is where the win streak finally ends for Detroit, and the Bills win this game outright. So give me Buffalo +105 on the money line. All right. Next game is Tampa taking on the LA Chargers. The Bucs are getting 3 on the road. Totals at 46.5. This basically comes down to whether or not Ladd McConkey plays. You kind of saw the Chargers offense do what they can without him last week. Still were able to put up some points, but not a great game by any means overall. Shut out in the first half. Tampa is a bit more explosive offensively, but boy, did they looked also very shaky against the Raiders last week. They ended up covering, but the final score is a little misleading. Aiden O'Connell gets hurt. You have to bring in what's his name? Desmond Ridder. So it's not, the final score is a little bit misleading, and the Buccaneers are good offensively, but this will be a little bit of a step up in terms of the defense that they play. Now going on the road, the Chargers are off of that loss to KC. This becomes a very big game for them to win. This is a huge game for both teams, but the Chargers are going to be very, very desperate to win this game. Laying 3, I don't love the number, but I would lean to LA here. But again, McConkey For me, that's the key here. If McConkey plays, I would go with. It looks like he's on track to come back. So if he does play, because remember, you're still missing like Disley. We don't know if Disley's going to go for this game. He got hurt against the Chiefs. You obviously still don't have Dobbins. But if McConkey's in this game, I'm confident enough to lay the points with the Chargers against the Bucs, because I just think the Bucs are a little bit, I don't want to say fluky or fraudulent, but that's not a great football team. That's, to me, in my ratings, average or even slightly below average. And they're just kind of, but they're well coached. They play hard on defense, but nothing that I particularly love about that team. I think the Chargers are better, and the Chargers should win this game. So I would lean to LA in that one. The Steelers are taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Pittsburgh now, you kind of see a point swing here, 4.5, 5, even a 5.5. So you got to shop if you like this one, depending on which side you like. Totals at 42.5. The Eagles, the Steelers get a big divisional win over the Browns. They cover. The Eagles beat the Panthers, but don't cover. Now get to stay home. Pittsburgh's the one traveling here. But man, I got to say, you think Mike Tomlin's getting blown out in this game? This is a huge game. These are the games that he gets up for. Tomlin as an underdog. I don't know. I know that the line has been bought up, and maybe my power ratings would even probably make this around a 5.5 or a 6. So I don't see a ton of line value on the game. But man, I think the Steelers are going to get up for this one. And I love that defense. Carolina was able to give the Eagles some trouble on defense. They're not nearly as good as Pittsburgh. Now that they have Highsmith back, Watt and Highsmith rushing against Jalen Hurts, Pitt's good against the run. That's going to be the real thing here. Can the Eagles consistently run the ball? That's what I thought they were going to do to Carolina. The passing game is just not there for Philly. Russ is playing really well for the Steelers. Got to see if Pickens comes back. He should be back for this game. But even without him, man, Russ is doing a great job. And, the whole A.J. Brown thing with Jalen Hurts, the comments after the game, maybe they try to force feed him in this game. I know sometimes those negative comments can actually be a buy-on spot. Like someone comes out, we need to improve the passing. Oh, there's rumblings like, oh, okay, A.J. Brown, he wants the ball more. A lot of people tend to say, oh, they hate each other. That can usually be a buy-on spot, because the next week it's like, all right, let's get him. Let's feed the man. And it usually ends up being big. But for me, on the other side, is just as appealing. Tomlin getting all these points, 5.5, 5 points. Great defense, rushing the passer, making life difficult for Jalen Hurts. You're really going to tell me that you'd be surprised if the Steelers win this game? I wouldn't be surprised at all. So I would lean to Pitt getting the points in this one. All right, the Patriots taking on the Arizona Cardinals. New England was getting 6.5. This has been brought down now to 6 or 5.5, depending on where you look. Totals at 46. I was big on Arizona on Sunday. That was my big play. Stinker. Kyler Murray, terrible. And in his career overall, he has not been good when he's laying over a field goal. So I don't care that it's the Patriots. They're rested coming out of their bye week. They still give a good effort every week. Drake May's very high variance, but he can do, he's looked pretty good, in my opinion, in the games that he's played. I would lean to New England getting the points. Kyler's great as a dog. He's great in these like little games where they're behind and they have to come back and squeeze one out. Maybe that's what they'll have to do here, but he's not great at covering a big spread because of his tendency to make mistakes, like he did on Sunday, selling my big play on the Cardinals by just throwing 2 early picks, giving the Seahawks a free 14 points. Look at the final score of that game, 30-18. Take away the 2 interceptions that give the Seahawks 2 free touchdowns. That game was right there. The Cardinals played well. The Cardinals defense is going to get shat on after that game, but they played well enough in that game. They actually played well in that game. The offense let them down, which is frustrating because that's the one side that you would think with Kyler and all those guys, but they just having a just horrible game by them. So I would lean to New England there, but it's not a strong, that's probably a game that I'm not touching. Here's a game that I am touching. The Packers taking on the Seahawks on Sunday Night Football. Green Bay laying 2.5 or 3, depending on where you look. 46.5 is the total. I like the Packers in this game. The Seahawks are on a 4-game winning streak. The defense, the one thing that I will say about the Seahawks is the defense, like I said in previous episodes when I had a big play on them when they faced the Cardinals the first time, and I expected them to split, which is why I went back to Arizona the second time. But the first time when they played the Cardinals, I said, this defense is undervalued. It's really good. It's much healthier now. They're working in their schemes and everything. McDonald is now working his magic. All great, but we want to try to find betting value. So if I'm going to look for betting value, they played the Cardinals twice. They played the Niners their first game out of the bye. Seattle was coming out of the bye. The Niners were drained, demoralized, and Seattle came in as a big dog on the road, won the game in that late drive with Geno running it in. Then you beat the Cardinals, then you beat the Jets, then you beat the Cardinals again. So not exactly, the Niners now look a lot better, but at that time they looked awful. So not exactly a murderer's row. Now you get the Packers coming in. Packers just went toe-to-toe with the Lions. This is going to be, since Seattle has come out of their bye week and has won 4 straight games, this will be the best offense that defense has to go up against. So this is going to be a real true test. And sometimes I like to look at matchups and break it down by the coaches. I love the offensive mind of LaFleur taking on a McDonald. He's been great he's done a really good job with the team, but he is a rookie head coach, and he's going to probably see some stuff that he probably hasn't seen before. And that play action, the way the Packers use play action, some of the best stuff in the NFL. And that's, I think, could really hurt the Seahawks defense. So I like Green Bay in this game. I like their defense on the other side because, like I said, Arizona's that final score is very misleading because Kyler threw the 2 picks. They gave him 2 touchdowns. Without those 2 picks, the Cardinals defense did a really good job against the Seahawks offense. The Packers defense is even better. They are much better in the secondary too. I think they'll be able to get pressure on Geno, maybe force him into a mistake or two. I just think this spot has Green Bay written all over it. They were right there. They could have beat the Lions. What if they did? Let's say they pull off the upset there, which they very well could have done. They had a lead, it was all there. Say they pull off the upset. What's this line when it opens up, right? It's probably not 2.5. It's probably a bit higher. So I think you're getting a little bit of value on the Packers against a team that is streaking right now. And how long can you keep that up? Are the Seahawks a 10-win team? Are they not? I think the Seahawks are just slightly above average. And you have to me in this game, a huge quarterback edge, a huge head coaching edge, and the spot favors you as well. I understand the appeal of getting 3 with a home dog at home. But this game reminds me of a lot of that Chargers-Ravens game on Monday Night Football, where the Chargers were getting 3 as a home dog, and we bet the Ravens in that game. They won. They ended up covering and winning. I think this has a similar feel to it. I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers pull away late and this is like a 10-point win or something like that, but I would go with Green Bay in this one. All right, you've got 2 Monday Night Football games this week. You've got the Bears taking on the Vikings to start it off. Chicago getting a full 7 now. This number has been bought up. Totals at 44. I don't really have an opinion either way here. I think the Vikings win this game. I didn't see anything from the Bears on Sunday. I always like to play the head coach being fired angle. So, that was going to be pretty much an automatic bet for me either way. Like when Eberflus got fired, we did it earlier in the season when Dennis Allen got fired, and that worked out. This one didn't work out, so you win some, lose some. But I didn't see anything that, like, Eberflus is probably laughing now because what the hell was that on Sunday? They looked completely lifeless. And I understand that I forget what he was before, but he bumped up to play caller, offensive coordinator, then becomes head coach. So I understand it's like a lot of big changes in a very short time, but man, they looked completely unprepared. And the Niners look like, the Niners that we've gotten used to seeing. So not exactly excited to bet on the Bears. They are getting 7 in a divisional game, but Minnesota just looks too good right now. They took care of the Falcons. I mean, the final score in that game was also a little bit misleading, but they did what they needed to do against the Falcons because it was tied at one point. It was 21-21, and then 21 unanswered points to end the game by Minnesota. But I wouldn't be surprised if that happens again in this game. If it's like 17-17 and then the final score is like a 2-touchdown win. So I think probably a good spot to put the Vikings in some moneyline parlays or teasers down to 1.5, or 1 or a pick. But yeah, can't really get behind too much in that game. Don't love it. The final game is the Falcons taking on the Raiders. I do like this one a little bit more. The Falcons are laying 4.5 on the road. Totals at 44. And what can we talk about in this game? Well, what if I were to sell you on the Desmond Ridder revenge angle? Yes, he was left. He was run out of Atlanta. Remember all the problems that they've had there? Oh, the running game is so good, but they can't throw the ball with Desmond Ridder. Well, look now. They ain't throwing the ball much better now. Kirk Cousins on a horrific run in these last 4 games. Hasn't thrown a touchdown pass in quite some time. That helped us because we hit our Bijan future to get over 6.5 rushing touchdowns. So I'm okay with it. But I like the Raiders here. All right. O'Connell gets hurt. Ridder comes in. Now you get a fresh start with Desmond Ridder. A week to prep. Going up against his old team. You're at home getting above key numbers, 4.5, with a good defense that can get pressure. What does Kirk struggle with? He's immobile. You're going to get pressure, you give him problems. why can't the Raiders win this game outright? So I like Vegas plus 4.5. I don't really see any reason why that you would expect the Falcons, who are not throwing the ball well right now. They run the ball well, but is that conducive to winning by margin? No, it's not. So I kind of like Vegas here. And I think Ritter is capable, but more so the matchup that I'm really looking at is the Raiders defense that I think could keep it pretty close here. And, just in general, like I talked about the Ravens earlier laying a big number, but I don't want to lay these numbers above key numbers with average teams on the road. Not really something you want to get used to doing. That's probably not going to make you money long-term in the NFL. So I would fade the Falcons here. I know and by the way, in the market right now, they look like the sharp side. So they've been bought up a little bit, but I don't agree with it. I think the Raiders will keep this close. So I like Vegas plus the 4.5. All right. That is the week 15 market rundown, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I will have a Thursday Night Football video up detailing. It's probably going to be the Niners, like I mentioned earlier. I like them a lot, but I will have a video going in depth on that, breaking it down a little bit, and I'll post it here so you guys can watch that. And don't forget the Action app link down in the profile to track any other free plays that I release for the weekend. Because if I don't come on here and make a video, I will at least throw like a college basketball play probably on Saturday, an NFL play on Sunday. I'll throw them on the app so you can track them along with me. All right. Good luck with your bets this weekend, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Let's get it.